Have you ever felt adrift in the chaotic sea of modern existence? Searching for an anchor in the relentless storm of information and expectation? What if I told you that the key to unlocking a life of profound meaning and unshakable tranquility lies not in some futuristic technology or a complex new philosophy, but in the ancient wisdom of a Roman emperor and the man who shaped his mind? Imagine possessing a mental fortress so strong that no external event, no criticism, and no misfortune could ever breach its walls. This isn't a superpower. It's a skill. And today, we're going to learn it from the mentor of the last of the 5 good emperors. Welcome, seekers of wisdom, to a journey back in time. A journey not just into the annals of history, but into the very architecture of a resilient soul. We often speak of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, whose meditations have been a beacon of solace and strength for centuries. But who was the architect behind this great mind? Who was the sculptor who chiseled the character of a man who would rule the most powerful empire on earth with wisdom and grace? Today, we delve into the life and lessons of Junius Rusticus, the man Marcus Aurelius himself credited as his greatest teacher, his mentor. Rusticus was a Stoic philosopher, a man who embodied the principles he taught. He wasn't a man of flowery words or grand pronouncements. Instead, his lessons were etched in his actions, in his unwavering commitment to virtue, and in his relentless pursuit of a life lived in accordance with nature. He taught Marcus not what to think, but how to think. He instilled in the young emperor a disdain for sophistry and a deep appreciation for unvarnished truth. It was Rusticus who introduced Marcus to the discourses of Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential Stoic philosophers. This gift alone would have been enough to secure Rusticus' place in history. But his influence on Marcus was far more profound, far more personal. He taught Marcus the importance of self-examination, of turning the gaze inward to the citadel of the self. In a world that constantly pulls our attention outward, with its endless distractions and its insatiable demands, Rusticus's teachings are more relevant than ever. He would have seen our modern world, with its social media feeds and its 24-hour news cycles, as a battlefield for the soul, a relentless assault on our capacity for deep thought and quiet contemplation. He would have urged us, as he urged Marcus, to carve out moments of stillness in our day, to retreat into the sanctuary of our own minds, and to reconnect with the ruling faculty that is the source of our strength and our freedom. This brings me to our first story of reflection for modern life, a story I call The Digital Hermit. Once, there was a young woman named Clara, a graphic designer living in a bustling metropolis. Her life was a whirlwind of deadlines, social, engagements, and the incessant pinging of her smartphone. She was successful by all modern metrics. She had a great job, a vibrant social life, and a beautifully curated online persona. But inwardly, she was drowning. Her mind was a chaotic tapestry of anxieties, her thoughts scattered and fragmented. She felt a profound sense of emptiness, a gnawing feeling that she was a passenger in her own life, not the driver, One evening, after a particularly grueling day, she stumbled upon a documentary about minimalist living. It wasn't the decluttering of physical possessions that caught her attention, but the idea of digital minimalism, the intentional and mindful use of technology. Intrigued, she decided to conduct an experiment for 1 week. She would become a digital hermit. She deleted all social media apps from her phone, turned off all notifications except for phone calls, and limited her email checking to twice a day. The first few days were excruciating. She felt a phantom limb syndrome for her phone, her fingers twitching for the familiar scroll of an infinite feed. She was bored, restless, and confronted with a silence she hadn't experienced in years. But as the week wore on, something remarkable began to happen. The fog in her mind began to lift, replaced by a clarity she had long forgotten. She started to notice the world around her, the intricate patterns of leaves on a tree, the warm smile of the barista at her local coffee shop, the symphony of sounds in her own neighborhood. She started to read books again, not just snippets of articles online, but entire novels that transported her to different worlds. She started to paint, a passion she had abandoned in college. Her creativity, once stifled by the constant influx of external stimuli, was now flowing freely. She was no longer a passive consumer of content, but an active creator of her own experiences. When the week was over, she didn't rush back to her old digital habits. She had tasted a different way of living, a more intentional, more meaningful way of being. She reinstalled a few apps, but with a newfound sense of purpose. She used them as tools, not as pacifiers. She had learned the lesson that Junius Rusticus had taught Marcus Aurelius 2 millennia ago, that the quality of our lives is determined by the quality of our thoughts, and that to cultivate a rich inner world, we must first create the space for it to flourish. Clara, the digital hermit, had found her inner citadel, a place of refuge and strength in the heart of the digital storm. This story of Clara is a testament to the enduring power of Rusticus's teachings. It reminds us that we have a choice. We can allow the external world to dictate our inner state, or we can take control of our minds and cultivate a sense of tranquility that is independent of our circumstances. This is the essence of Stoicism, and it is a lesson that is more vital today than ever before. Now, let's turn to our second story for reflection, a story that explores the theme of mentorship in our often isolating modern world. I call this one The Unlikely Mentor. Meet David, a man in his late 40s who had been laid off from his corporate job of 20 years, the world he knew, the world of predictable career paths and lifelong employment, had crumbled beneath his feet. He was adrift, his confidence shattered, his sense of identity in tatters. He spent his days sending out resumes into the digital void, each rejection a fresh blow to his already bruised ego. He felt invisible, obsolete, a relic of a bygone era. One afternoon, to escape the four walls of his apartment, he started volunteering at a local community garden. He knew nothing about gardening, but he was desperate for a change of scenery. a distraction from his own bleak thoughts. There, he met a man named Samuel, a retired schoolteacher in his late 70s. Samuel was a man of the earth, his hands calloused from years of tilling the soil, his face a roadmap of a life lived outdoors. Samuel wasn't a philosopher in the academic sense, but he was a man of profound wisdom. He never offered David unsolicited advice or empty platitudes. Instead, he taught by example. He showed David the patience required to nurture a seed into God, a thriving plant, the resilience of nature in the face of adversity, and the quiet joy of a hard day's work. They would spend hours together in the garden, their conversations meandering from the proper way to compost to the meaning of a well-lived life. Samuel shared stories from his own life, his triumphs and his failures, his joys and his sorrows. He spoke of the importance of adapting to the changing seasons, both in the garden and in life. He taught David that true strength lies not in resisting change, but in embracing it with courage and grace. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, David began to change. The bitterness that had taken root in his heart began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. He started to see his job loss not as a personal failure, but as an opportunity for reinvention. He enrolled in a horticulture course, his passion for gardening ignited by his time with Samuel. He started a small business designing and maintaining urban gardens, his corporate skills finding a new and unexpected application. David had found his unlikely mentor in a community garden, a man who had taught him not just how to grow plants, but how to cultivate his own soul. Samuel had been his Junius Rusticus, a guide who had shown him the path to a more authentic and fulfilling life. This story reminds us that mentorship can be found in the most unexpected of places. That wisdom doesn't always come from a book or a lecture hall, but from the shared experience of two human beings connecting on a deeper level. It encourages us to seek out mentors in our own lives and to be open to the lessons they have to teach us, no matter how humble their station. So, what can we take away from the life and teachings of Junius Rusticus and from the stories of Clara and David? First, we must recognize the importance of our inner world. In an age of constant distraction, we must actively cultivate a space for quiet contemplation and deep thought. We must become the masters of our own minds, the guardians of our inner citadels. Second, we must understand that true wisdom is not about accumulating knowledge, but about living a life of virtue and integrity. It is about aligning our actions with our values and striving to be the best version of ourselves in every moment. And third, we must seek out and cherish the mentors in our lives, those who challenge us, who inspire us, and who guide us on the path to a more meaningful existence. Don't let this just be another video you passively consume. Take one step today to apply these lessons to your own life. Perhaps it's a digital detox for a day, or a walk in nature without your phone. Or maybe it's reaching out to someone you admire and asking for their guidance. The path to a more tranquil and meaningful life is not a destination. It's a practice. a daily commitment to cultivating your inner world. Start today. Start now. And if you found value in this reflection, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Let's create a ripple effect of wisdom and tranquility in a world that so desperately needs it. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and may you find the strength and wisdom of the Stoics within you.